Hi, my name is Mia. Welcome to Scrubs and Savings. I'm a 20-year-old nursing student documenting my financial journey here on YouTube, and today we're going to talk about my no spend month in June. I used a red, yellow, and green light category system for what I could and could not spend money on. So in my green light category, I could spend money on my monthly donations and subscriptions, as well as gifts for my family. In my yellow light category was things that I did not want to spend money on and avoid at all costs. However, I would not be mad at them if I were to spend money on them. That included any travel expenses, tickets to an Olivia Rodrigo concert, and coffee during a rough 12-hour shift. And in my red light category, it was basically everything else, including eating out, getting coffee outside of work, clothing, skincare, makeup, movies, and other entertainment activities, and everything else that I could purchase. I succeeded in only spending money on things that were in my green light category, but there was one exception where I got charged for my monthly bank fees, which I didn't even consider when I was making my list, and I still have to call my bank about that, but that's for another time. I had a note in my notes app where I kept track of what I was spending each day, and I'll put a photo here, but it was really motivating at the end of each day to check off that I spent no money or spent money on things that I care about. I did have some temptations to spend throughout the month. I was looking at some labor and delivery themed sweatshirts as well as microphones for this channel. I knew that I didn't have to purchase those items in this month and that I could wait for July or any other month to purchase those things. I learned a few things from doing this challenge, even though I only did it for a month. The first thing that I learned how to do, I guess, was to appreciate the things that I have and know that I have enough. Since I did refrain from unnecessary purchases, including things that I do enjoy, such as eating out and activities, I became more aware of what I already have in life. I relearned and practiced simple pleasures such as reading more books and spending time with my dogs. I realized that I sometimes take for granted that I live in a comfortable home. I have many clothes and shoes and a lot of homemade food. I also did a side quest where I decluttered parts of my family's home. While I was doing this, I realized how many things that we still kept that could go to other people that would appreciate that item and love it more than we do. So I donated most of those things, and we are going to bring some back home to the Philippines in December. After this month, I want to continue appreciating what I have. I hope doing this will help me prevent buying more and more things, thinking that it will complete my wardrobe or my life or bring me fulfillment when I already have so much that makes me happy already. The second thing that I learned how to do during the month was to completely use up my products and reflect on whether or not that purchase was worth the money, energy, and time that I spend on using it. For example, I finished a bottle of my facial hydrating serum around day 9 of this challenge, and I just kept using the moisturizer that I already have on its own. Since I don't find serums very essential to my skincare routine, I refrained from purchasing it again. I wanted to take the time to figure out if it was worth it or not. And after a couple of weeks, I realized that I do enjoy the serum's effects on my skin, and I think it's worth the cost. So I set aside money in my budget for it. But luckily enough, my mom did have a $25 Sephora gift card that she wasn't going to use, so I did repurchase the item. I do tend to wish list things that I would like to own but don't feel comfortable purchasing until I reflect on whether or not I need it or whether it will add value to my life. But I've never practiced using up my products and waiting a while to repurchase them and using that time to reflect on that products affect on my skin, for example, whether or not it's worth it, like I've said before. The third thing that I learned how to do throughout the month was to find and create things to do. Since I couldn't spend money on entertainment or activities, I had to get a little creative with how I spent my free time. An example of how I found something to do was to roller skate in an empty parking lot. So my partner bought me rollerblades for our anniversary, and even though I really love roller skating, I'm used to paying to go to a roller rink to roller skate. However, since I couldn't spend money on doing that this month, we decided to go to a local church's newly paved parking lot and sort of use that as our roller rink for the day. I also went to a couple of local parks that I hadn't been to before and found new hiking trails there. I tried a new yoga class at my school, and I read some books that I already own. And even in itself, I found it really fun and fulfilling to come up with activities that don't require me to spend money. Although I will continue to spend money on activities and entertainment in the future, I will be more particular about what I spend money on and think about whether I can make an alternative free or cheaper version of doing that thing. I also started loud budgeting during the month. If you haven't heard of loud budgeting before, it involves openly discussing your financial goals and budget with your friends and being able to say no to spending money on certain things that your friend wants to do. Even though I do have a YouTube channel talking about my budget and personal finance topics in general, I do still feel uncomfortable talking about money with my friends. I hung out with my friends a couple of times during the month, and I let them know that I'm trying not to spend as much money as I normally do, and we either just hung out at my house or went on a hike instead of eating out or getting coffee like I normally do when I'm hanging out with friends. I think letting my friends know about my financial goals and that I wasn't spending money throughout the month allowed us not only to do free things with each other, but also openly talk about our finances with each other. And I shared how I budget and save my money to a couple of my friends, which was really fun and refreshing for me to share that enthusiasm with them. I'm very fortunate to have very non-judgmental friends. Respect my boundaries in every way, especially regarding money. And one of the most exciting things that came from loud budgeting was that one of my friends and I have planned a friend date in July where we are going to talk about basic personal finance topics and how I budget and save for the future and help her do the same as well. And lastly, the most surprising thing that I've learned throughout the past month was that I don't value eating out as much as I thought I did. It was pretty easy not to eat out because I live at home and my family eats out together at least once a week. However, when I spend money on eating out, it's normally out of convenience or social interaction. As I discussed before, instead of my normal practice of eating out as a way to spend quality time with my friends, we instead stayed at home to hang out, or we went on hikes together because there was such beautiful weather during the month. I think doing free things during the month challenged the concept in my head that going out to eat is a necessary part of my social life. I think that separating my desire to go out to eat and my desire to have a social life will allow me to not only save money, but also allow me to spend even more quality time with my loved ones, because when we are talking, we won't be out in a public setting. And I think from now on, when I do decide to eat out, I want it to be because I really want to try the food at the restaurant rather than it being something that I have to do in order to hang out with my friends. I'm really proud of myself for doing a successful no spend month, and I am considering doing a no spend or low spend year next year, which is very daunting, but I think I'll be able to do it. And I hope to continue to appreciate what I have, use up my products, and analyze whether or not they're worth it, find or create free things to do, loud budget with my friends, and dine out because I want to try the food and not associate eating out with my social life. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.